There's a moment when you realize that holding on is hurting more than letting go. That moment is terrifying, it's painful, it feels like losing a part of yourself. But here's the truth. If you have to beg for someone to see your worth, you're in the wrong place. We all want to be loved. We all want to feel chosen, wanted, and valued. That's human nature. Connection is a fundamental part of who we are, and we often measure our worth by the strength of our relationships. But what happens when we begin to value connection more than ourselves? What happens when we hold on so tightly to a person, a relationship, or a situation that we start losing sight of who we are? There's a fine line between love and attachment, and too often we confuse the two. Love is freedom, it's respect, it's mutual effort. It's choosing each other every day without force or fear. Attachment, on the other hand, is built on insecurity. It's the desperate need to keep someone close, even at the cost of our own well-being. It's the voice in our head that says, if they leave, I won't be okay. It's the fear that without them, we are less valuable, less lovable, less whole. But here's the truth. Attachment isn't love. It's fear wearing love's disguise. So many of us have stayed in relationships that drain us because we convinced ourselves that being with someone, even in dysfunction, is better than being alone. We tolerate mistreatment because we fear the silence of being by ourselves. We make excuses for why they don't show up for us, why they don't choose us the way we choose them. And each time we do, we chip away at our own self-worth, piece by piece, moment by moment, until we barely recognize the person we've become. But what if we paused? What if we asked ourselves, am I holding on to them? Or am I holding on to the idea of what I wish they could be? Because that's what attachment does. It keeps us clinging to potential instead of reality. It convinces us that if we love harder, if we give more, if we just prove we are worthy, then maybe, just maybe, they will finally see our value. But that's not love. That's a transaction. That's a negotiation of self-respect in exchange for temporary validation. Real love doesn't ask you to prove your worth. It doesn't require you to abandon yourself to keep someone else comfortable. It doesn't make you feel like you are constantly auditioning for a role in someone's life. When you start choosing self-worth over attachment, everything changes. You stop chasing, you stop begging, you stop waiting for someone to give you the love that you should have been giving yourself all along. You begin to understand that losing someone who does not value you is not a loss. It's a gain in freedom, a gain in peace, a gain in the opportunity to fill your life with people and experiences that don't require you to shrink yourself just to be accepted. But the process of unlearning attachment is not easy. It means sitting with discomfort. It means walking away from people you thought would be in your life forever. It means resisting the urge to reach out, to check in, to make sure they still think about you. It means facing the part of you that has been conditioned to believe that you are only worthy when someone else says you are. It's in this space, this quiet, uncomfortable, painful space, that you find yourself again. You learn that your value is not determined by who stays or who leaves. You realize that the love you were searching for in someone else has always been within you. You recognize that real love, the kind that is deep and true, starts with the way you choose yourself. Because at the end of the day, attachment says, I need you to be okay. But self-worth says, I choose me no matter what. We spend so much of our lives trying to be present for others, showing up, proving our worth, making sure we are seen and remembered. We believe that if we give enough, if we love enough, if we try hard enough, then maybe people will appreciate us, choose us, stay with us. But what if the real power isn't in how much you show up, but in what happens when you don't? Absence has a power that presence often does not. It forces reflection, it creates space, it reveals truths that are often blurred by familiarity. When someone is always there, always available, always giving, it's easy to take them for granted, but when they step away, when the calls stop, when the texts don't come, when their energy is no longer freely given, that's when reality sets in. That's when people start to realize the weight of what they had. People don't notice the air they breathe until it's gone. They don't appreciate the warmth of the sun until the cold sets in. The same is true in relationships. When you're always there, always accommodating, always the one making the effort, people don't always recognize your value. But when you remove yourself, they are left with the absence of what you once brought into their lives. And in that absence, they have no choice but to feel it. But here's where most people struggle. Stepping away feels unnatural. It feels like giving up, like losing control, like allowing yourself to fade into the background. It triggers that deep, primal fear of being forgotten, of not mattering. So we fight it. We reach out, we over-explain, we try to remind people of what they are losing before they even have the chance to miss us. And in doing so, we rob them of the experience of absence, the very thing that could have shown them our true worth. Sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away, not in anger, not in resentment, but in self-respect. Not to manipulate, not to play games, but to allow space for the truth to emerge. If your presence is truly valued, your absence will be felt. If your love was meaningful, its loss will be noticed. And if someone genuinely cares, they will feel the emptiness where you once were and take action to bring you back into their life. Absence is clarity. It strips away the noise, the distractions, the excuses. It forces people to confront what they truly feel when you're not there. And more importantly, it forces you to see things clearly, to recognize who values you, who never did, and where your energy is best invested. It's in the silence that you hear the loudest truths. It's in the space you create that you learn who is willing to step up, who is willing to meet you halfway, who sees your worth even when you are no longer standing right in front of them trying to prove it. But absence isn't just about relationships with others, it's about your relationship with yourself. It's about understanding that your value isn't in how much you give, how much you chase, how much you overextend yourself. It's in knowing that you are worth missing, you are worth longing for. You are worth being pursued, appreciated, and chosen, not because you begged for it, but because the right people will always recognize what you bring to their life. And if they don't, then maybe your absence didn't create a void in their life, but it created space in yours for something better. We are taught from an early age that holding on is a sign of love, that fighting for something, refusing to give up, and pushing through the hard times are what make us strong. Letting go, on the other hand, is often framed as failure. It's seen as giving up, as quitting, as not trying hard enough. But that's a lie, a dangerous one. Letting go is not weakness. It is one of the hardest, bravest things a person can do. It requires more strength than holding on ever will. Because holding on is easy when it's all you've known. Holding on means staying in the comfort of the familiar, even when it hurts. It means choosing a version of love, a version of security that is breaking you piece by piece. But letting go, that means choosing yourself. That means stepping into the unknown with nothing but faith that you will be okay. That is courage. The truth is, we don't hold on because we love something. We hold on because we are afraid. Afraid of change, afraid of loneliness, afraid that if we let go, we will never find something better, afraid that we will regret it, that we will look back and wonder if we made a mistake. So we convince ourselves to stay, to fight harder, to settle for less than what we deserve, because at least it is something. But there comes a point when holding on starts to hurt more than letting go, when the weight of it becomes unbearable, when the effort is one-sided, when you realize that no amount of love or loyalty can make someone choose you if they don't want to. When you recognize that holding on isn't proving your strength, it's preventing your growth. Letting go means surrendering to reality. It means accepting that no matter how much you wish things were different, some people are not meant to stay in your life forever. Some love stories don't last. Some friendships drift. Some dreams evolve into something else. And that is okay. Because your worth is not tied to what you lose. It is not measured by who chooses to stay. Your worth is in how you choose to move forward. Strength is in the moment you decide that you deserve more, that you no longer want to be a second choice, that you refuse to keep fighting for someone who does not fight for you. Strength is in walking away with your head held high, knowing that love should never feel like a battle you have to win. But letting go is not just about people. It's about everything that no longer serves you. It's about releasing the expectations, the guilt, the self-doubt that has kept you stuck. It's about freeing yourself from the past, from the mistakes, from the what-ifs that haunt you. It's about unlearning the belief that suffering is a requirement for love, that pain is a necessary price for connection. It takes strength to admit that something is over, that you cannot fix it, that you cannot make someone see your worth if they refuse to look. It takes strength to walk away from a love that is all you've ever known, even when it has been unkind to you. It takes strength to close a door without knowing if another one will open. But the most powerful thing about letting go is that it does not just free you from something, it frees you for something. It makes space for healing, for peace, for the right things to find you. because you cannot receive what is meant for you if your hands are still tightly gripping what was never yours to keep. It's easy to believe that our worth is tied to the people who choose to stay in our lives, that their love, attention, or approval somehow confirms that we are valuable, lovable, and enough. But when they leave, when the calls stop, when the texts go unanswered, when the connection fades, suddenly we feel like something is missing, like a part of us has been taken with them. And for a while, we convince ourselves that without them we are less, but that is a lie. You are not defined by who stays or who walks away. You are not a reflection of their choices, their love, or their absence. Their presence in your life may have shaped you, may have taught you lessons, may have brought you joy or pain, but it does not define you. It never did. Too often we build our identity around relationships, romantic, friendships, family connections. We weave ourselves into their lives so deeply that we forget where they end and we begin. We see ourselves through their eyes, measuring our worth based on how they treat us, how they see us, how much they love us. And when they leave, it feels like losing a part of ourselves. But losing someone does not mean losing yourself. Their decision to walk away does not mean you are unworthy. Their inability to love you the way you deserve does not mean you are unlovable. Their absence does not diminish your existence. You are not less because they left. You are not broken because they couldn't stay. You are whole even without them. The danger of defining yourself by someone else's presence is that it gives them power over your identity. It makes your happiness, your confidence, your self-love dependent on something external, something you cannot control. And when that external thing disappears, you are left searching for yourself in the emptiness they left behind. But the truth is, you were never in them to begin with. You are always here. You always belong to yourself. It is natural to grieve when someone leaves, to feel the weight of their absence, to miss their laughter, their words, their presence beside you. But do not mistake that grief for proof that you are incomplete. Missing someone is a testament to the love you gave, not a reflection of what you lack. You are not someone's afterthought. You are not someone's almost. You are not the broken pieces of a love that didn't last. You are not the broken pieces of a love that you are not the silence of unanswered messages or the ache of unspoken words. You are not their regret, their mistake, or their goodbye. You are you, and you are enough with or without them. Distance is often seen as loss, a separation, a void that makes us feel disconnected, forgotten, or left behind. We resist it, fight against it, and try to close the gap as quickly as possible, thinking that healing happens in closeness, that if we just explain enough, try harder, stay connected, or keep them within reach, the pain will subside. But sometimes the only way to truly heal is through distance. When we are too close to something, whether it's a relationship, a painful memory, or a toxic cycle, we lose perspective. We get caught up in the emotions, the history, the familiarity, and we can't see the situation clearly. We convince ourselves that staying is the answer, that holding on is the solution. But healing doesn't happen when we are constantly reopening wounds, reliving the same patterns, or drowning in the presence of what broke us. Healing requires space. It requires stepping back so we can see things for what they truly are rather than what we wish they could be. Distance is uncomfortable. It forces us to sit with our thoughts, to confront the silence, to face ourselves without distraction. And that's why we avoid it. We fill the void with noise, checking in, reaching out, scrolling through old messages, reminiscing about the good times, hoping for a different outcome. But true healing begins when we stop seeking external reassurance and start listening to what our own heart needs. Distance allows reflection. It gives us the chance to process what happened without interference. It helps us recognize patterns we couldn't see before, understand our role in the situation, and make peace with what we cannot change. When we are too close, emotions cloud our judgment. We justify behaviors, we minimize pain, we overlook red flags. But when we step away, we gain clarity. We start to see things as they are, not as we wanted them to be. Healing through distance is also about learning to detach, not just from people, but from the emotional weight we've been carrying. It's about releasing the need for closure that may never come, letting go of unanswered questions, and understanding that sometimes the only answer we need is that something was not meant to stay in our lives. It's about giving ourselves permission to move forward without waiting for an apology, an explanation, or a final goodbye. There's a reason why stepping away often brings peace. It's because distance removes the external noise and forces us to focus inward. It reminds us that healing is not about someone else fixing what they broke. It's not about getting validation from the person who hurt us. It's about rebuilding ourselves, piece by piece, in a way that no longer depends on them. But distance is not just about moving away from pain, it's also about moving toward growth. It creates space for new perspectives, new experiences, and new connections that align with who we are becoming. It allows us to rediscover who we are outside of that relationship, outside of that situation, outside of the identity we once tied to someone else. It's in the quiet moments, the days that feel empty, the times when we wonder if we made the right choice, that true healing happens. Because healing is not instant. It's not a straight path. It's messy, painful, and requires patience. But distance gives us the room to breathe, to evolve, to step into the person we were meant to be without the weight of the past holding us down. Life has a way of filling up with people, with commitments, with expectations, with noise. We often don't realize how much we're carrying until we feel the weight of it, the exhaustion, the frustration, the quiet voice inside us whispering, "This isn't it." But instead of making space, we keep piling things on. We stay in relationships that drain us, in situations that stunt our growth, in cycles that leave us feeling empty, and we wonder why we feel stuck. But here's the truth. You cannot receive what you deserve while still holding on to what isn't meant for you. We cling to what's familiar, even when it no longer serves us. We hold on to friendships that have run their course, relationships that require more effort than love, jobs that don't align with our passion, and routines that keep us stagnant, not because we want to, but because we're afraid of the unknown. Letting go feels risky. The empty space feels uncomfortable. But that space is necessary. It's in that space that something new can finally find you. Creating space is an act of trust. It's believing that by releasing what is not right, we make room for what is. It's understanding that just because something was once good doesn't mean it still belongs in your life. It's knowing that just because you can hold on to something doesn't mean you should. But making space isn't easy. It requires hard choices. It means walking away from things you once wanted, saying no to things that no longer align with you, and resisting the urge to settle for less just because it's available. It means trusting that even in the discomfort, something better is on its way. So many of us are afraid to let go because we don't know what's next. We fear the loneliness, the uncertainty, the quiet moments where doubt creeps in. But emptiness is not a void. It's potential. It's possibility. It's the beginning of something better. When you create space, you invite the right things in, the right people, the right opportunities, the right energy. You make room for relationships that don't feel forced, for experiences that light you up, for a life that feels aligned with who you truly are. But none of that can come if you're still clinging to what's wrong for you. The people who drain you, the habits that no longer serve you, the beliefs that keep you small, these things take up space. And as long as they're occupying your life, they block what's meant for you. Imagine holding on to something so tightly that your hands are full, unable to catch the blessings trying to reach you. You have to be willing to let go, to release, to trust that what is meant for you will arrive when you make room for it. Creating space is not about loss, it's about alignment. It's about clearing out what is not in service of your highest good. It's about making the bold choice to say, I deserve more, and I am willing to wait for it. It's about knowing your worth and refusing to settle for anything that asks you to shrink. And the moment you stop filling your life with what's easy, with what's comfortable, with what's familiar but unfulfilling, that's the moment the right things begin to flow in. The moment you trust yourself enough to say no to what's wrong, you make room for what's right. The moment you create space, you open the door for everything you truly deserve to finally find you.